Anyhow, welcome to a long-awaited version of my two Loonies. Worth, lots have happened. What's happened in my life? First of all, still playing with the whole idea of the two camera setup here. This one's looking at the nostril of my nose, but hey, I can certainly put it in a different position. I know I'm doing it redundant to put two cameras, and I'm really sort of playing with the format right now because I'm doing YouTube streaming and podcasting and stuff like that. Even though I have done a couple of these, I'm starting out. I mean, I'm an old guy, and I've been through the ringer with technology, and I've seen it some and seen it go. And this is a new thing for me, the whole thing about the internet. And what I've done, which you don't see in the one camera, which is kind of new now, is I've decided to, since I got a nice mixer board, stick a microphone in the equation and actually be a little more professional about this and really try to make this a little bit better production than I did before. It's not a perfect setup, but it's better than nothing. So bear with me as I get things set up right and all that. My thoughts. Crazy year so far. Who would have thought that Joe Biden's world would turn so crazy? I mean, between Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau and the rest of things, with the way that's going on the war in Russia and the whole response to Ukraine, Russian war in Ukraine, I should say, and the whole response to that around the world, and the fact that there's a lot of stuff to unpack. Where do we begin? I don't know where to begin. I think the big takeaway from this is that one of the things that us as a civilization really can't take too much for granted is our freedom. The fact that many people have come to this country and to North America in general, the United States and that, and many of the Western nations that were the beacons of the concept of free and democratic governments where people had the right to say what they had to say. People could disagree. We come together. We form consensus, hopefully, and we move on and form a better, freer world because everyone feels they have a right to say what they say. Not everybody gets heard totally. Not everybody ever gets their way, but everyone has to give a little bit. We can't have everyone get their way. And that's what democracy is about. Because if we had dictatorship, which is Justin Trudeau wants, and people like Joe Biden wants, and a lot of these other guys, the types of things they want, what are we going to get? You see what we're going to get. We see it every day. We see it every day we walk around the streets. The fact is, there is no perfect system. I mean, they've tried dictatorships, and are still trying them, trying to figure it out. At the end of the day, dictatorships don't work because at the end of the day, what happens once people get enough vexed and fed up about the whole idea of being in a dictatorship, what happens is one brave soul decides to make a difference. And then another brave soul. And another brave soul. And eventually enough of those brave souls go against the system and it falls. It falls every time. No dictatorship ever survives forever. Because the will of people. We fought for centuries for this liberty. And now that many people have already gotten it and have tasted it and are still, with others, still looking for it, the ones that have it are the ones that are just the regular average person like you and me. And because of that, we don't want to give it up. The elites, on the other hand, are licking the power. And they're always like power. There's always going to be someone out there who is wanting to have power and the opportunity to have that power and the ultimate ability for that power to be abused totally against the citizens. But a lot of times these people don't realize that what they're doing is wrong. They don't know because they feel that they're driven by whatever agenda they have, their own personal ideology, and because our ideology is the way it is, they see the world envisioning the way they see it. And it's the old idea that people sometimes think they know the best for everyone. And they're doing it, and they keep saying, we're doing it for you. We're doing it for your children. We're doing it because we want to make you safe. Or whatever the reason is. It doesn't matter what the reason is. The motivation's always the different motivations, but ultimate goal is they want to have control. And they figure the only way they can get the world the way they want it is to control everything. And what happens every time? What happens every time this happens? Eventually, dictatorships fall and revolutions happen. Is China ready for a revolution? Maybe. But the thing is, what happens is, revolutions are bloody, revolutions are dirty, and a lot of people get killed, but they also get killed in wars. So it's either a revolution or a war, whichever one you want. There's parts of the world that are destined to have one or the other. In the sense, as we have to work out the best system for human beings to have the right to be able to exist, No human being should be able to have power over the other one. It shouldn't be. We're all from the same ground. We all return to the same ground. That's simple. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are. It doesn't matter what you don't believe. At the end of the day, the one true thing is we all live, we all die. Period. Full stop. What we do with this life, how we make use of this life, how we manage to fuck up our lives. Sorry, we do. All of us, in some degree, will fuck up our lives in some degree. Some of us more than others. Some of us have a lot of forgiving to ask, and some of us don't. But the thing is, even the most righteous people out there, the people that want to judge everyone about how bad they are, ultimately have their own skeletons in the closet. If they were revealed, they would be very embarrassed by it. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. So you mean that, accept the fact that we're not perfect. We're human beings. We're all works in progress. We all want to strive for better. Some of us more so. Ultimately, the potential is there for everyone to do so. Some decide to take it and some don't. And simple as that. So, as far as everything goes, like I say, my motto of this channel, and the motto that I've lived my life with most of my life now, in the last couple of years, especially more so than ever, is live and let live to a certain degree. But the fact is, when you start doing things to hurt me and people I care about, all in the name of progress, all in the name because you believe you know better than me, I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. In fact, I don't think anyone in any great mind could buy it, because the fact is that's not compromise. That's just dictatorships. And dictatorships should never be allowed in a free society anywhere in the world. The whole world should be free. We are living beings that have a finite life. We all should be able to make our best effort and do have the opportunity to make our best effort and to contribute to the rest of society and leave more behind than we take from it in the end and contribute. And the only way that can happen, literally, the only way that can actually happen is that we have to be able to have everyone have access to the opportunities for the best potential. The rich and the poor. Rich people can contribute too. Maybe not in the same way as they do now, maybe in a different way. But ultimately, the fact is, whether they're rich or poor, the fact is, I think the best thing for now with technology happening the way it is, where mechanization is taking over a lot of the mundane jobs that used to be done by the working class, the working class should take this opportunity to find new ways to re-energize themselves and re-energize themselves and repurpose themselves for society that's going to be where they will no longer need it in these roles anymore. It means maybe in some cases more education for certain people. Maybe learning some new skills. If you're not necessarily intellectual, you can learn skills. You can find some way that you can find your purpose. Find a way to fit in society and have a purpose. I mean, we all need to find some purpose. Whether it's something like me just talking on here to you about purpose and that, and elevate you and trying to inspire you to that purpose, or just you finding your own purpose somehow, but using my words as inspiration. Again, see, this is what happens when you play with technology. These cameras, believe it or not, are great things, except that the camera I'm using, the Sony, has a time thing on where it's in demo mode. Right now I'm not recording, I'm just using it as a video camera, I'm just cheating with it. And because I went on way too long, I don't even know what my time is. I gotta check my time here. I look at my time clock here. It should be, I'm looking at how much time I've done. I'm setting this up here. I'm trying to see where it says the time. I used to have a time clock somewhere. Tell me the claim, Mr. Producer. Tells me the file usage. No, it doesn't tell me what time. I have to find that out. But I'm sure it's like about 15, 20 minutes already. And probably the longest podcast I've done for a while. So what's going on? Okay, what's going on with my life is I'm like everyone else. I'm trying to accept to live and make a life. What is that life? Who knows? But whatever life that is my life to make. And just like you, it's your life to. You have the choice to make the best of your life and be the best life, because none of us know how much time we got left. We really don't. So as far as the rest goes, we can't worry about the little things. The Russian war, we know that ultimately governments are going to decide that, and we're the ones that get to decide governments, fortunately. In most of the Western countries, we have things called elections, and those things are instruments to decide of change, determine whether or not we feel our government is going in the direction we want it to go, whether we want to support a war effort or we want to move forward a more peaceful and economic democratic solution that could be out there that would make more sense, that would save a lot of lives on both sides, and resolve this conflict for what it really is, a conflict because of ideology. Belief in ideology is what most conflicts are run by. One person believes this way and the other person believes something else. And of course, that's where the contrary thing is. And of course, what happens is in that conflict, people tend to have different ways of resolving conflicts. Sometimes people punish people for behaving in a way they don't feel is right. And they call that sanctions. And sometimes what happens to people doing these things don't always feel the consequences of them more than and then they keep telling us we have to suffer, we have to sacrifice because it's for the greater good. Well, whose greater good is it in that? What would the war in Russia mean to you personally? Either way, whether they're fighting or not, how would that affect you personally in your own personal life in this personal space? And as so, are the people in the country that they're fighting for really getting any freedom? Is this really doing them any good by doing this? Is this going to encourage Russia to leave any more than anything else? Maybe there's a better solution. Let's find out. I mean, I'm here to. I don't have answers. I just pose questions, and let the people that have more power decide whether or not there's actually a better solution than they can find out there. So, I mean, the gas problem. Let's face it. We're living in a world that we eventually will, at some point in history, run out of certain types of natural resources. Because they're not really natural, are they? In the sense, they're natural, but the thing is, let's face it, gas is made from dead things. Dead things that have been dead for a long time, under a large part of ground, and eventually we're going to keep digging up ground, and eventually we're going to run out of those dead things. Because, one, we're human beings, we put ourselves in sarcophaguses, which were part of the dead things that were out there, and we protect ourselves from being part of we've got some sort of fear of returning back to our bodies returning back to the ground which it came from. So of course, because of that, we've got this thing about dying, and that a thing that maybe primitive life forms before didn't have time to consider. It just happened. It's just, you're dead, now you're in the ground. That's it. You go back to the old ashes to ashes, dust to dust, the type of things that religion and a lot of philosophy groups tend to go on. But we have this fear of it, so we're not going to. Our ancestors become oil. Maybe the animals eventually, some thousands and thousands of years ago, may eventually just sediment after millions of life cycles or whatever amount of times left, they may turn into oil again. There may be another civilization that ends up mining us. I don't know, or the next we don't know. But in this lifetime, the oil that was there from the millions and millions of years ago will eventually go. Now, natural gas, in their hand, the beauty of natural gas, it's in its name, natural. It comes from life. It comes from the process of eating. Any animal that eats anything produces natural gas. So the thing is, we know as long as life exists here, as long as we can keep life going here, we can always have natural gas. So guess what? Why are we having such a problem deciding to burn it? We're very too much CO2. But there's a thing called trees. Natural gas has been burning for centuries in nature. And before we came along and started burning it in cars and burning it in homes and burning other sources, it was burning naturally, just like nature came. So it's producing carbon dioxide for quite a long time, long before we came along. Now, oil, on the other hand, that's something that hasn't been burning because it's been in the ground. I mean, it's been burning in the ground, but it's not been burning in the sky as much. I mean, it's only in the last 100 years or so that we made extensive use of oil, making all these other things of it, and all the effects of distilling and breaking it down and making it refining and stuff like that. It's only happened in the last 100 or so years, but before that, we were using animals. We were using organic oils, whether it be animal oils, which some people object to, or vegetable oils, which is native in the ground, like extraction from vegetables. I mean, there is a path forward for that, but the problem is, unfortunately, with the types of things like you're doing vegetable oils and animal, and those things, you require land. You need to plant things. So maybe we should look at instead of worrying about putting up more solar farms to take up land and taking away natural habitat from animals and destroying the natural world as it is to put this supposed green energy that's supposed to save us all. Why we look at nature's green energy? Nature is how we had energy sources to rise on. The sun is one of them, of course. We can use the sun to certain degrees, but smarter ways. We need to look at ways of making use of the sun in a smarter way that doesn't require massive raping of the environment in order to make it. Like, for example, the simplest way to use sun energy, the most easiest way, is passive radiant heat. In parts of the world where we have a lot of passive radiant heat is one of the most efficient ways to do it, because the fact is it doesn't require a lot of equipment. We already know how to build heat exchangers. We were really good at building that. We have built very good technology for doing things like heat exchangers. In the closed parts of the world, building passive heat systems and instead of building a solar panel is much more efficient use, because the beauty of a passive heat system is if you have pipes that are coated or pipes that don't tend to rust and you're running a liquid through that can't cause the pipes to rust, that doesn't have anything in limits to us, and we can make sure the pipe is provided from us, that pipe could be in a trap for more than 20 to 30 to 50 to 100 years, running around, collecting heat, passing it off, done. And if we can figure out ways of taking the heat and using the heat in other ways, in times of year when we don't need the heat, like we could use it for just hot water in the house, domestic hot water. The only problem with storage, I mean, the only thing about passive heat, the only downside of passive heat is we don't have a method of storing the energy. Not yet. If we can figure out some technology to take a passive heat system and put it into some system that can maybe boil a kettle of water and in a generator, like build a mini hydroelectrics, build a mini turbine system in your home where you take that all the heat, you put the water, the superheated steam drives the turbine turns electricity goes to a battery, presto change, you just created you just created solar energy. And it didn't require you having to mine all kinds of coal to turn that silicon into solar panels, which only lasts a certain amount of time. The solar panels will not cost as much money as they do because the energy inputs that to put into it, as opposed to putting a box with a bunch of copper pipes and a little passive radiating system together, and then maybe some sort of build a generator of wires, metals, and that, which we have plenty of them because we've been throwing away metal stuff for God knows how long that we could recycle. I mean, people don't realize eventually, I expect the next 100 years, the next great mines for precious metals in the world will be our dumps. The greatest resource for things will be our dumps because we have powered thousands and thousands. Before recycling came on, even still recycling now, we put thousands and thousands, maybe millions of tons of precious metals into the dumps because it's cheaper to mine new ones than it is to recover old ones. That we are very short-sighted. We look for the cheapest, quickest way of doing it. But here's the thing. We're going to have a lot of people running around with no jobs soon as we displace and just change the economy. So we need to stop thinking the dollars and cents thing as much as worrying about paying much and making profits, and realigning our economy to an economy that actually is sustainable for the future of humanity. Instead of thinking in this very, very small terms of consumerism and having this much and having that much and who's got more and who has less. I mean, in a way, these guys, I can understand how guys like Klaus Schwab sound like an European concept. Own nothing and be happy. Well, own nothing and be happy is the counter side. But the thing is, if you don't own anything, you can't own anything. Sure, but the thing is, you gotta remember, you still owe something. You have to put inputs into the system, and then you have to decide who's the one that decides who manages those resources, who manages the collection of those resources, who distributes those resources so everyone can get access to them. How do we determine who's worthy of those resources? And because of that, this is why capitalism has existed for so long, because we've attempted so many different ways to find a system. Cameras on again. We tried so many ways in different systems to make a way to motivate people to do work and reward people for the effort of doing that work. And of course, because we've got a system that requires lots of money as capital to make the machines and that to do these tasks on a mass scale, to do everything, what's happened is that was the rule of what businesses were. People that were willing to invest and work very hard, built a large amount of capital and save it up, and invest and buy the tools that made their job better, and eventually decide, well, I could build a big tool, and I can put a bunch of tools together, and I can get a bunch of people, maybe people that don't want to invest in that, and those people would be better off working for me than taking the same risk and do it themselves, become entrepreneurs and provide, like we used to do in the fuel system, where each person was built with their own business person. Each person in the system was all virtual single entrepreneur in one area, especially, and that was his job. He did what he did, and he did some trading. That's where money came from, currency and IOUs, and that, in order to facilitate the changing of goods over time when it wasn't always convenient to have those goods, or the person that had them goods, you had goods to sell, had goods you wanted but didn't have goods that they wanted. It facilitated trading, and this is how it came about. The concept of governments became because we ended up deciding we wanted to put some sort of infrastructure in to do the things that normal citizens need to do, like build roads and bridges and educate our peoples, and do all the things that are tedious in terms of that, and the fact that we figured we needed some managers to do it, so put some middle managers, and hence the concept of government eventually formed, where these middle managers were then collected over time for terms of time, or people in the society that took a part of their time. In this case, when politicians take all the time, or supposed to take all the time, most available time that they work in time to help provide and administer and manage these services for the rest of the have. That's what a capitalist system does. And we have the right at that time to decide whether those people are continuously doing the job we want to do, and then they have to basically ask for our approval again. Whereas the communist system is kind of the same thing, except the people don't get made to approval. They only have one group of people doing anything. They streamline the whole administrative process. You only get one group. You don't get to elect them. They're elected themselves. And the thing is, the only way you can literally get rid of them is revolution. And what happens is they don't actually let you do that because they discourage revolutions all the time. So right now we're at apex. We got the social people that want to try a socialist system on the left, the communists. You got the capitalists, and then you got the free marketers in the middle. That want to redefine what free enterprise is. The Klaus Schwabs in there. They want to redefine because the fact is they don't think that the ordinary people. They're afraid the ordinary people will revolt, so they're attempting to come up with a system that makes it seem like it's better for the ordinary people, but really look inside the politics of it. Take a look at it for yourself and see what it is before you make that decision to buy into this supposed utopia of being that you won't owe anything, but you won't own anything either. And the thing is that, do you think that most of the people on this earth deserve to be basically slaves to a system that doesn't give them any opportunity to ever advance and get and use their ingenuity to be better, and that only a certain group of elites have the right to do that? And then what they do is anyone that has those ideas, they instead of doing it themselves and becoming entrepreneurial and raising themselves, staying by their bootstraps, they end up just being exploited by these particular armored gods or elites. And their idea are taken from them. They're maybe getting a slap pack in the back, maybe get a little extra stip in here, and then those people take your idea and exploit it to the best and become even richer and become even more powerful, and you don't get truly rewarded for what you have. That's the system that I think that these people want to have for us. And I'm scared. I'm petrified of that system. I'm petrified of the idea that we've come so far in terms of the idea of capitalism and that we need to transcend to some other system. But the problem is right now the world is desperately looking for that system to be the transcendent system because, well, let's face it, eventually our species is going to leave this planet at some point, so we have to get our shit together. The neat thing about science fiction is most science fiction becomes science fact to some degree, as you've seen the history of humanity so far. Sometimes we get it right in terms of the timing of when things happen, sometimes we don't. And it's interesting to see how this happens, how this progress changes over time, and what direction. We are definitely the masters of our own ship. We get to control the destiny of our own selves in our own world. And right now, it's our time to decide what we want. What type of government we want, what type of people we want running us, how much power do we want to give them or not give them in this case. How much personal responsibility we have to take, because the fact is, if we want power, we have to take personal responsibility. And I think the problem with society right now in democratic societies is democratic societies have forgotten the one fundamental primary of the democratic society, which is the right to vote, and the power of that vote is, and the significance that vote should be to them and to society at large in terms of shaping the society and influencing it so that things like this don't happen in society like this. And we may need to reform that system in the meantime to make it more democratic and fair and less one-sided in terms of like a case of like a minority government, for example, ruling the country as opposed to a majority, and how that system can sort of get awry when certain parties feel that they're holding on to power for the sake of holding on to power, or they're wielding influence and power because they can. I'm talking to you, Jagmeet. You know what you can call me up. I know where you are. I will have a discussion with you, Jagmeet, any day of the week regarding the idea of why and your motivations are for supporting this particular government. Whether you feel it's a good or bad, I don't care. The fact is, we're going to have a different opinion on this. I respect the fact you have a different opinion, but I also have to respect the fact I have the right to disagree with you, just like every other Canadian does. And here's my problem, okay? Naming someone that disagrees with you a dirty match name. I remember an old saying when I was growing up, my kid, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names never hurt me. But when you turn the names into sticks and stones, as is done many times in history, that's when revolutions happen. So remember that lesson for all these politicians out there who decide to come back and attack their own citizens. Eventually what's going to happen, you're going to run into people who are sympathetic towards your cause. They'll think that this is justified, because you may be able to justify it for a while. There may be a lot of people out there that justify like things like the Freedom Convoy protest, how they are handled, and all these other things. But at the end of the day, what happens is, once you cross the line, once enough people decide that what you're doing is wrong, then that's the time when things are going to go awry, and people will stand up to you, and you will not be able to stop them just by calling them names. That is the weakest argument for getting things to change, is calling them names. The best argument, the strongest leaders, are the ones that stand up to the people that oppose them and actually face them and explain to them why they do the decisions they do with justifiable reasons that can convince them that it makes sense and is right. If you can, and all you can do is dissent, crush, that type of thing, it doesn't say much for the power of your ideas, does it? If the best you can do is call them names and dissent and cause them harm in order to hope they will just go away. Eventually, one day, they won't. So anyway, I think that maybe this might be the wrap-up for this broadcast. I will attempt, because I hate the word try. How many of us say, oh, I will try to make that party next week? How many times have we done that? How many times do we make the party? Never. We never get there. It never happens. It never, ever happens that you make it to anywhere that you're supposed to go to. It's always that hard word, trying, and you try, and never succeed. I will attempt to be you, my friends, every week. I want to have you participate in this discussion with me. I listen to a lot of other people. There's lots of commentators out there. I'm not the only voice out there to talk to. Like I said, I'm not going about telling you what to do, because, quite frankly, I don't know everything anyway. I know what I know. I have an opinion. And my opinion evolves. As I get more information, as I get more informed about things, as I look at things and get a more broader perspective on things, my opinion has changed about a lot of things. Like at one point in time, I was back to a person like Bill Gates. Bill Gates is the greatest guy in the world. He's being a philanthropist, great guy. He's doing all these great things in the world. But then at the end, you start looking at the corners of it and you realize that not everything is as it seems. Not everything is what you think it is. There's lots of things. It's not, as I used to always be told, it's not what you know, it's what you don't know. And lack of knowledge is ignorance. Knowledge is always power. And the problem is, whoever controls the knowledge controls the power. So the fact is, don't let anyone tell you something without being able to prove it. And don't let anyone ever tell you something where you cannot check it out for yourself and make up your own mind about, including the current leadership of this government, this country, every government that goes around there professing to know what's best for you. At the end of the day, you have the democratic right to determine whether you think these people are doing your best work for you. And quite frankly, I don't personally think they are. I really don't think they are. And anyway, I think I'm just going to wrap this broadcast for this time. I'm going to just hopefully this recording came out, because I didn't test it yet. It's getting big. It's getting 16.7 gigabyte file. We're getting really massive file. I hope that I can upload it to the YouTube channel. I'm going to attempt to do it this weekend. I'm going to make it hopefully a schedule from now on that every weekend, every Wednesday and Thursday, when I get a chance, I'm going to put together an evening of podcast. I might start doing some live streaming eventually, once I start getting out there and getting some people actually talking to me and leaving me messages in my channel and discourse and that. And maybe some people might want to come on there, other YouTubers that may want to participate with me and be guests with me and maybe educate me some about certain things that maybe I'm wrong about. Because let's face it, like I say, I'm here to learn as much as I'm having to help you learn from me. We learn from each other. We always better to learn from each other and not necessarily have a narrow-minded opinion about something that you may feel that's not totally informed. So anyway, I'm going to leave this broadcast for now. Hopefully I can send this out if it's working. If not, I'll probably have to start this over again. But I'm just doing a test recording anyway, so I'm just going to cross my fingers and see that it works. I'm going to do a test out. And if it's working, we'll send it out to you, and hopefully I'll be here with you next week. I'll put this out Saturday. I hope to do every podcast every Saturday. We're putting in a new live recording. I'll be doing it on YouTube, but I'll also be doing it on Rumble and a couple other sources. Look at Odyssey and a few others I'm looking at. As I add more streams to this thing, more I produce to get that, I will let people know where they can go. I will see whether or not any of these particular podcasts ever have any problems with YouTube and its censors. If I get any problems with that, I will then probably do like Rumble, like people at Rebel News do, which is produce 2 different podcasts, one with a censored version that YouTube likes, and one with an uncensored version using on some of the other platforms like Rumble that have more ideas and get to more things that are more that can maybe considered controversial by certain people. Ideas that I want to explore in a more in-depth way as intelligent human beings, rather than have something like YouTube decide what I can talk about, what I'm allowed to talk about. So, like it's just the beginning of what they call the nanny state. I may also, if I necessarily have to, may leave video files on my website, www.endtimemedia.ca, or as I got now, itmcg.ca, itmcg.ca. It's my new website name I just put to make it easier for your boys and girls to find me. Right now, there's not much there right now, but I'm hoping to build onto it and add some things. I'm hoping to add some merchandise eventually on the channel, and also some of the other activities we're doing. My brother's a performer, musician himself, and I want to start working, seeing if I can get back him on the road and get him to go going on something. You may want to check out, I got another channel called Sweet Home Chicago on my Time Media Group channel. I got the main channel. I got some videos from his band Sweet Home Chicago, which are very enjoyable from the years he did it. I think it's a very, very well done blues tribute band. His buddy Doug Comrie was involved in it, instrumental. He was the one that started it, and I was there to record it. It was somewhat very rough and raw, but I was starting up very early. I was just learning the process. I'm still learning now, and this is the thing. It's you're coming on the journey with me to learn and grow with me and discover. As hopefully I'll see how many days I got left. I mean, nobody knows how much life I got. It's my last day. Who knows? Anyway, just to wrap it up, it's Mike. And hope to see you next week again. If you check me out, and if you have any comments, send it to my email at info@endtimemedia.ca. And if you send me anything through there, I will definitely get back to you and answer your questions as fast as I can, and we can maybe have a discussion. Anyway, take care and talk to you next week. Bye for now.